The reverberation of that day will forever haunt me. The sharp crack of the ceramic mug as it shattered on the tough linoleum floor, the scorching hot coffee blistering my aged, deeply lined face, and most acutely, the unadulterated loathing visible in my daughter's eyes when she screamed that I was nothing more than an utterly useless burden on her life. My name is Clara Jenkins. I am 67 years old, and for 42 of those significant years, I wholeheartedly believed that the very essence of being a mother meant accepting absolutely everything that came my way, without question. I truly believed that my entire worth as a woman was intrinsically tied to the act of sacrificing my own self until I effectively vanished into oblivion. I had convinced myself that genuine love was epitomized by silently enduring every single humiliation, no matter how profound. I was profoundly mistaken in that belief. Discovering this remarkably simple yet life-altering truth, however, cost me many decades of my life and nearly every shred of my hard-won dignity. That particular Tuesday morning had begun just like countless others. I awoke promptly at 5 o'clock, a time when my weary body simply refused to allow me any more sleep. My bones would creak with protest, my joints would ache with a dull, persistent throb, and the solace of deep sleep, much like everything else cherished, seemed to fade further with each passing year. I rose slowly from my bed, acutely aware of every one of my 67 years residing in my worn-out knees, and then deliberately shuffled toward the kitchen of the very house I had painstakingly purchased with my own 2 hands 3 decades ago. This specific house, my own house, the sanctuary I had paid for entirely by sewing intricate formal gowns until my fingers would literally bleed from the effort and countless needle pricks. This was the same house where I had lovingly raised my daughter, Tanisha, completely alone after my beloved husband Arthur tragically passed away when I was a mere 25 years old. It was this very house where I now felt like an unwelcome intruder, a barely tolerated stranger, much like an old, cumbersome piece of furniture that perpetually gets in the way, but no one possesses the heart to simply discard. I proceeded to set the water to boil gently on the stove. Soon, the comforting, familiar scent of freshly brewing coffee began to subtly permeate the entire kitchen. That particular aroma always transported me back to those serene, quiet mornings from decades past, when Arthur was still alive and vibrant, and our daughter Tanisha was just a little girl who affectionately called me Mama and would offer me a warm hug before eagerly heading off to school. How incredibly distant all of that now seemed, so profoundly far away and almost unreal, as if those cherished memories had belonged to someone else entirely. Tanisha was already seated at the kitchen table, her smartphone held firmly in her hand, scrolling through content with that same bitter, resentful expression that had, over the past few years, become a virtually permanent feature on her face. I no longer recognized her. The sweet, innocent child I had watched dance joyfully in all her school festivals. The dreamy, idealistic teenager who harbored aspirations of becoming a teacher. The earnest young woman who had solemnly sworn she would always take care of me when I grew older. All traces of that beloved person were utterly gone. In her place sat this 42-year-old woman, brimming with palpable resentment, who inexplicably blamed me for every single one of her own failures in life. Her husband, Derek Price, had already departed for work early that morning. My cherished granddaughter, Journey, was still peacefully asleep in the bedroom I had carefully prepared specifically for her when they had first moved in with me 3 years prior. 3 long years that somehow felt more like 33, during which I had progressively become the unpaid, undervalued maid in my own home. 3 arduous years filled with incessant complaints, thinly veiled contempt, oppressive silence, and pointed looks that communicated with stark clarity that I was utterly surplus to their requirements. I poured the freshly brewed coffee into a simple, plain white mug, one that I had owned for what felt like an eternity. I then placed it meticulously in front of Tanisha. She didn't even bother to glance up from her phone. "This coffee is cold," she stated flatly, without even attempting to taste it, without even bringing the mug anywhere near her lips. "I just brewed it, honey," I softly replied, trying to keep my voice gentle. It's hot, I promise. Well, I say it's cold, she insisted, her tone hardening noticeably, becoming sharp and dismissive. And it's watery, too. You messed up the coffee again, Mama, just like you mess up everything lately. I tried, desperately, to explain that I had followed the exact same recipe as always, used precisely the same amount of coffee grounds, and that the water had been boiling vigorously. But my words seemed to simply ricochet off an invisible, impenetrable wall. She simply didn't want to hear. She never truly wanted to hear anything I had to say. Suddenly she sprang up from her chair with violent force. The chair screeched loudly against the floor, producing a sound that sent an involuntary shiver down my spine, and she grabbed the mug with both hands. Before I could fully register what was happening, before I could possibly shield myself or even attempt to move away, she flung the coffee directly into my face. The scalding liquid struck my skin with an intense, searing impact. It burned. It burned so intensely that for a terrifying second, I couldn't even draw breath. The coffee streamed relentlessly down my face, down my neck, completely soaking my old, familiar floral blouse. But the sheer physical pain, as excruciating as it was, paled in comparison to the emotional torment that followed immediately. "You're just like your coffee, Mama," Tanisha shrieked, her voice saturated with a venomous hatred I never believed she was capable of. "Old, bitter, and completely useless. I'm sick of you. Sick of seeing you here every single day, taking up space, being a burden. You are absolutely dead weight in this house." She then moved closer, her face mere inches from mine, her voice a harsh whisper. "Everything you do is wrong. Your food tastes awful. Your clothes smell like an old lady. Your very presence makes me sick. You shuffle your feet when you walk. You breathe too loudly. You're always just there, always bothering me, always existing when you shouldn't be. I wish you'd just disappear. Already." The cruel words sliced right through me, cutting deep. Every single syllable was like a silent, deliberate stab into a part of my soul I hadn't even known existed. I stood there, motionless, coffee still dripping from my chin, staining the freshly mopped floor I had painstakingly cleaned just the night before. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something profound inside me simply froze over for a moment, an icy stillness, as she continued to spew her toxic poison with every word. My mind involuntarily traveled back in time, reliving past events. I saw all those countless nights I had stayed awake until the early dawn, meticulously sewing prom dresses for other families, earning barely enough to cover the tuition for the private academy Tanisha had so adamantly insisted on attending. I saw the extravagant birthday parties I had single-handedly organized, selling homemade dinner rolls and pies on the street corner for weeks on end just to scrape together the necessary funds. I saw the demand for new shoes, the branded school supplies, the clothes that invariably had to be from expensive stores. Because all my friends have those brands, Mama. I vividly recalled when Tanisha was 18 and expressed her desire to attend college. I sold my precious gold earrings, the last remaining heirlooms from my own mother, to pay for her very first semester. She didn't even utter a simple "thank you." She abruptly dropped out 6 months later, claiming she disliked waking up early. I remembered clearly when she met Derek. I knew instantly that he wasn't a good man. I saw it plainly in his calculating eyes from the very first day. That particular way he evaluated everything, measuring its worth solely by its monetary value. But Tanisha was deeply in love, and I, as always, remained silent. I kept silent because I had already painfully learned that my opinion held no significance whatsoever. They eventually got married. I personally paid half the cost of the wedding, selling the new sewing machine that had taken me so long to save for and acquire. I reverted to using my old Singer, the one that invariably made my back ache intensely after just a few hours of work. It didn't matter, I told myself. It was my daughter's wedding. 3 years later, they returned, bringing Journey, who was still a baby, claiming they simply needed a place to stay for a few months while they managed to save some money. Months gradually stretched into years, and those years inexorably transformed into my living nightmare. In the beginning, They made a feeble attempt to conceal their true intentions. Derek spoke to me with a forced, artificial politeness. Tanisha still managed an occasional, strained smile. But slowly, so imperceptibly slowly that I almost didn't notice, I became their personal servant. I cooked their meals, I washed their clothes, I ironed their garments, I cleaned the house, and I paid for the electricity, the water, the gas, and all the groceries. They contributed almost nothing, always with an endless string of excuses. "This month is tough, Mama. We'll pay you next payday. Don't be selfish. We're your family." And I, consistently, accepted it all, because that's what I had been taught. Because my own mother had always impressed upon me that a good woman sacrifices everything for her family. Because I truly believed that was what love entailed. But what Tanisha had just done to me, that was not love. It never truly was. I slowly wiped my face with the edge of my blouse. The coffee was cooling on my skin, leaving a sticky, deeply unpleasant sensation. I looked up, and for the first time in years, I truly looked at my daughter, as if seeing her for the very first time. I saw a woman consumed by bitterness, profoundly frustrated with her own life, desperately searching for someone, anyone, to blame. I saw someone who had never truly learned that decisions inevitably carry consequences, because I had always been there to rescue her, to pay for her mistakes, to serve as her unfailing safety net. I saw the person my little girl had ultimately become. And I did not like what I saw reflected back at me. Something profound inside me suddenly clicked, like an old, worn thread that had been stretched far beyond its breaking point, finally snapping with a decisive sound. Like a rusty, long-stuck door that finally gives way after years of relentless pushing. It was like waking up from a long, incredibly confusing dream and at last perceiving things with perfect clarity. I walked deliberately, slowly, toward the living room door. My legs were trembling uncontrollably, yet each step felt remarkably firm and resolute. I opened the door wide, allowing the morning sun to stream in like a powerful spotlight, illuminating the entryway. I turned directly to Tanisha and spoke in a voice I barely recognized as my own, a voice so unsettlingly calm it was frightening, yet undeniably authoritative. "Get out!" She blinked, visibly confused by my unexpected command. "What did you say?" I said, "Get out. Pack your belongings and leave my house right now." Tanisha let out a nervous, disbelieving laugh, a sound devoid of genuine amusement. "You're crazy. I live here." "This house," I declared, and each word emerged solid, heavy, and utterly final, "is in my name. It always has been. I purchased it with my labor, with my own hands, with my sweat, and I want you out of it this very instant." "You can't do this. I'm your daughter." "You are my daughter," I conceded, "but you ceased treating me like your mother a very long time ago. You transformed me into your enemy, your maid, the convenient target of all your frustrations. Well, it is over. Derek will be back, and we'll sort this out. You'll see. Derek has to leave too. When he arrives, I will tell him the exact same thing. You do not possess the right to be here. You do not possess the right to treat me in the abhorrent way you did." Tanisha's face went pale. For the first time in years, I saw genuine fear in her eyes, a real visceral fear that I was utterly serious. "Mama, I was angry. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I interrupted her, my voice unwavering. "You meant every single word. And you've probably been contemplating them for a very long time now. You will have to live with that. But not here. No. Not in my house. Not in my presence. And Journey? You're going to kick out your own granddaughter too?" "Journey can remain if she chooses," I clarified. "But you and Derek are departing. You have until he returns home to pack only what is yours. The rest stays here because I paid for it all. You're a cruel, selfish old woman. Perhaps," I accepted calmly. "Or perhaps I am finally learning not to allow myself to be treated like trash in my own home." Tanisha stomped angrily up the stairs. I could hear her violently throwing items into suitcases and slamming drawers with furious intensity. "Journey, roused by the cacophony, emerged from her bedroom in pajamas, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Grandma, what's happening?" I walked over to my 15-year-old granddaughter and gently stroked her hair. "Your mother and father are going to leave, baby, but you can stay if you wish." "Why are they leaving?" I didn't lie to her. Children possess an uncanny ability to sense deception. They feel it palpably in the air around them. "Because your mother treated me very badly, Journey, and I have decided I will no longer accept being treated badly. Not by her, not by anyone." Journey wrapped her arms around me in a tight embrace. I felt her warm tears wetting my already coffee-stained blouse. "I'm so sorry, Grandma. I saw how she spoke to you. I saw how they treated you. I always wanted to say something, but I was scared." "It's not your fault, my love. It never was." Tanisha came downstairs half an hour later, dragging 2 poorly secured suitcases, her face flushed red from crying. But these were not tears of genuine sadness. They were tears of raw rage, of profound helplessness, of utter frustration that her meticulously controlled world was rapidly crumbling. "This isn't over," she threatened from the doorway, her voice trembling with fury. "I'm calling lawyers. This house should be mine too." "Speak to whomever you like," I replied evenly. "The paperwork is perfectly clear. This house belongs to me. I purchased it solely in 1995, long before you were even married. You have no legal claim to it whatsoever." "You'll pay for this." "I have already paid enough, Tanisha. I paid with 42 years of my life, with my youth, with my dreams, with my very health. I owe you nothing more." She slammed the door shut with such force that the windows rattled violently. Journey and I remained in a stunned silence, listening intently as her footsteps faded away down the street. "Are they really just going to leave like that?" my granddaughter asked softly. "Yes, my love, they really can, and they truly are." The subsequent few hours passed in a kind of surreal fog. I diligently cleaned the spilled coffee from the floor. I washed my face thoroughly with cold water. I could still feel the faint burns on my skin, slight but distinctly present, tangible physical reminders of the traumatic event that had just transpired. Derek arrived around noon. He strode into the house with that familiar, entitled swagger he always possessed, as if my own home inherently belonged to him. "Where's Tanisha?" he demanded, scanning the room with an arrogant air. "She left. And you must leave too." He let out a condescending, mocking laugh. "What did you say, mother-in-law?" I said, "Get out. This is my house. It was never yours. I want you to take your possessions and disappear." His expression abruptly changed. The facade of forced cordiality crumbled, revealing the true, unsettling Derek I had always known existed beneath the surface. "You've completely lost your mind, Clara. I live here. I have rights." "You have no rights. Review the papers if you wish. This house is in my name, purchased with my own money long before you ever entered my daughter's life. You never contributed a single dime toward this property. Tanisha is going to hear about this. She has already heard me. You have all heard enough from me. Now it is my turn to speak, and what I am stating is that you need to go." He took a menacing step toward me, attempting to intimidate me with his imposing height and aggressive presence. But something in my gaze, perhaps a newfound resolve, halted him. Perhaps he perceived that I had absolutely nothing left to lose. Perhaps he recognized that 42 years of holding back, of silent endurance, had abruptly concluded in one swift, decisive blow. He turned, trudged heavily up the stairs, and reappeared 20 minutes later with a single suitcase and a duffel bag. "This isn't over, Clara. You'll regret this. Whatever is destined to happen will happen. But not here, not in my house, not in front of me." He departed without even bidding farewell to Journey, who had been silently observing the entire confrontation from the staircase. When the door finally closed, my granddaughter ran down and embraced me tightly. "What happens now, Grandma?" "Now, we live in peace, baby. For the very first time in a very long time, we live in peace." That night, after Journey had peacefully fallen asleep, I sat alone in the dark living room. The house was profoundly quiet, but it was a distinctly different kind of quiet. It was not the heavy, oppressive, tense silence of before, when I had tiptoed around, perpetually anxious not to bother anyone. It was a clean, refreshingly empty silence, brimming with new possibilities. I gently touched my face where the coffee had burned me. The skin was tender and sensitive, but the injury was not serious. It would undoubtedly heal in a few days. The other wounds, the invisible ones etched deep within my soul, those would take much longer to mend, but they would heal too. I had to believe it. My phone rang. A sudden intrusion. It was Tanisha. I allowed it to ring until it eventually gave up. She called again and again, and then one more time. I did not answer any of the calls. The next day, the text messages began to appear. "Mama, let's talk. You're overreacting. I'm coming back, and we're going to fix this. You can't do this to me." I did not respond to any of them. On the third day, Derek returned. He pounded furiously on the door, shouting threats, proclaiming that he would sue me, that he knew influential lawyers, that he was going to take my house. I immediately called the police. They arrived promptly, requested his identification, and calmly explained that he was on private property without the owner's explicit authorization. They escorted him away with a stern warning. He did not return after that. Journey stayed with me for a week, but Tanisha's relentless pressure was simply too much for her young spirit. The girl cried every time her mother called, desperately begging her to come home. Finally, she packed her belongings one rainy afternoon. "Grandma, I don't want to leave you, but Mama says if I don't come back, she won't let me see you ever again." "It's okay, my love," I said, hugging her tightly. "I understand. And when you turn 18, when you're an adult, you can come whenever you want. No one can stop you. I'll wait for you. Promise me you won't forget me?" she asked in a small, vulnerable voice. "I could never forget you, Journey. You are the light of my life. You always were." She left, tears streaming down her face. I closed the door, and for the first time in days, I allowed myself to cry too. I cried for my granddaughter. I cried for the daughter I had lost many years ago, even though she was still physically alive. I cried for all the wasted years of my life. I cried for the woman I used to be, who had passively allowed herself to be treated in such a deplorable way. But when I finished crying, I resolutely wiped my tears. I looked at my reflection in the entryway mirror. I saw a 67-year-old woman with deep, prominent wrinkles, dark circles beneath her eyes, and streaks of gray in her hair. But I also perceived something else entirely. I saw strength. I saw dignity. I saw someone who had finally declared, "Enough." And in that precise moment, I knew with unwavering certainty that this was merely the beginning, that my life was on the cusp of changing in ways I couldn't even begin to imagine. Yet what they didn't know, what Tanisha and Derek could never even suspect, was that my comprehensive plans extended far beyond merely expelling them from my house. I had crucial documents to meticulously review. I had important calls to make. I had an entirely new life to meticulously rebuild from the ground up. And for the very first time in 42 years, that life was going to be completely, unequivocally mine. The initial days after Tanisha and Derek's departure felt profoundly strange. The house itself sounded different. Every subtle creak of the old wooden floors, every gentle gust of wind against the windows, every consistent drip of the kitchen faucet resonated in a remarkably new way. It was as if the house itself was finally exhaling, finally breathing freely after years of holding its breath in suppressed tension. I continued to wake up early out of deeply ingrained habit, but I no longer felt rushed or compelled to hurry. I prepared my morning coffee slowly, deliberately, savoring every moment of the process. I drank it peacefully at the kitchen table, gazing out the window at the neglected yard, a space I had ceased tending years ago because Tanisha had constantly complained that I tracked dirt inside whenever I worked with the plants. My kind neighbor, Bernice Miller, knocked on my door on the fourth day. She brought with her a container of delicious homemade brisket and that familiar look of curious concern she always attempted to mask. "Clara, honey," she began softly, I observed Tanisha leaving with suitcases. Is everything truly all right? Bernice, at 65, had resided next door ever since I had moved in 3 decades ago. She had been a silent, discreet witness to absolutely everything. She had seen me arrive, young and recently widowed with a small child, working late into the night sewing in my living room. She had watched when Tanisha married and left, and then when she returned, transforming my once peaceful home into a silent, perpetual battleground. Come on in, Bernice. I'll pour you some coffee. We settled down at the kitchen table. I recounted everything to her. About the coffee being thrown in my face, about the years of relentless humiliation, about how I had finally found the courage to ask them to leave. Bernice listened attentively, without interrupting, nodding occasionally and gently squeezing my hand during the most difficult parts of my story. "Oh, Clara," she sighed when I finished. "I knew something was deeply amiss. I saw you shrinking year after year, becoming quieter, as if you were deliberately trying to make yourself small so you wouldn't bother anyone in your own home." "That's precisely how I felt," I admitted, my voice heavy. Small, invisible, as if I were occupying space that didn't rightfully belong to me. "And what are your plans now?" she inquired gently. "I don't know yet," I confessed. "But for the first time, in a very long time, I truly feel like I can breathe freely." Bernice lingered a little longer. She informed me that Tanisha had been speaking to other neighbors, spreading malicious rumors, claiming I had lost my mind, that I desperately needed psychiatric help, that I was becoming senile. "Don't you believe a single word that girl utters," Bernice stated firmly, her eyes full of conviction. "Everyone who lives here plainly saw how they treated you, the way she spoke to you, how Derek looked at you, as if you were nothing more than a piece of furniture. You're not crazy, Clara. You're waking up." Her reassuring words instilled a newfound strength within me. I realized I was not as utterly alone as I had previously thought. There were eyes that had observed my silent suffering, even though I had genuinely believed I was concealing it perfectly well. After Bernice departed, I began the meticulous task of going through my papers. I retrieved the old metal box where I carefully kept all my important documents. The deed to the house was there, prominently displaying my name, Clara Jenkins, widow of Arthur Jenkins. I had acquired it in 1995 with the money I had painstakingly saved from sewing for a decade. Tanisha was 15 years old then. I had proudly told her I was securing our future, a safe, permanent place where no one could ever expel us. How profoundly ironic that 30 years later I would be compelled to expel my own daughter from that very safe haven. I continued to review the documents, uncovering old yellowed receipts. Tanisha's enrollment records for the private academy, which cost a hefty $300 per month. The expensive, brand-new uniforms she had demanded. The textbooks that had to be new every single year, as adamantly, refused to second-hand owners. The lavish graduation trip to Miami, Florida, which cost a staggering $15,000, a sum I had covered by selling my television and my old refrigerator to purchase a cheaper used replacement. I found the invoices for her wedding. The dress alone cost $2,500, the reception hall, the food for 200 guests, the music, it totaled $7,000. I contributed $3,500, achieved by selling my new sewing machine and depleting savings I had meticulously set aside for mjaunoldage. I continued my search and Unir Thedmori Rec Ipes for various loans. I had made the mover the years, loans they had never repaid, 1,000 for their first apartment's rent, 2,000 when Derek lost a job, 1,000 when Journey was born, 100 when their car broke down, and another 3,000 to settle credit card debt. I pulled out a notebook and began to meticulously calculate. The cumulative amounts were absolutely staggering. In total, over 42 years, I had spent more than $300,000 on Tanisha. $300,000 that I could have used entirely for my own life. To travel, to live in comfort, to retire earlier and cease working so arduously. And what had I received in return? Contempt, incessant complaints, constant criticism, and scalding hot coffee in my face. I allowed myself to fully embrace rage for the very first time. I did not bottle it up in my chest as I had always done. I let it out completely. I cried with unrestrained fury. I slammed my fist repeatedly on the table. I yelled out loud every single thing I could never bring myself to say to Tanisha's face. When I finished, I felt utterly exhausted, but strangely relieved. It was as if I had expelled a virulent poison that had been slowly accumulating in my bloodstream for years. I couldn't sleep well that night. Memories flooded my mind in overwhelming waves. I saw myself, a young 25-year-old, standing numbly in front of Arthur's casket. My husband had died suddenly of a heart attack. We hadn't even had time to say goodbye. One day he was there, smiling, playfully interacting with Tanisha. And the very next day, he was gone forever. I was left completely alone with a 5-year-old girl, no close family support, and barely any savings. But I refused to sink. I learned to sew by diligently watching instructional videos and humbly asking the women at the local market for guidance. I purchased a used machine and began doing small alterations. Then I progressed to dresses and eventually elaborate formal gowns. I gradually built a strong reputation. Clara, the seamstress, became well known in 3 distinct neighborhoods. I worked tirelessly day and night. Tanisha grew up, half raised by kind neighbors who assisted me when I couldn't leave the workshop I had established in my living room. I gave her everything I possibly could, everything she ever asked for. Always terrified that she would acutely feel her father's absence, always striving to compensate for that profound loss, attempting to be both mother and father at once. Perhaps that was my fundamental mistake, giving her too much, never allowing her to experience frustration, never teaching her that things cost money, that you must work diligently for what you desire, that not everything in life comes easily. I raised her like a pampered princess, while I myself lived like an overworked servant. And she grew up genuinely believing that this arrangement was perfectly normal, that I existed solely to serve her, that my ultimate function in life was to make hers effortlessly easier. I got out of bed at 3 a.m, went to the kitchen, and heated some milk. I sat at the table, the warm mug clasped between my hands, staring into the impenetrable darkness outside the window. At what precise point did Tanisha stop loving me? Or did she, in fact, never truly love me at all? Was I merely useful to her? A convenient resource she could simply draw from at will? I recalled an afternoon when she was 17. I had sewn all night to complete 3 urgent dresses. I was utterly exhausted. My fingers ached agonizingly. My back was in excruciating pain. Tanisha returned home from school and casually asked me to iron her uniform for the following day. I told her to do it herself, explaining that I desperately needed a moment to rest. She became furious, yelling that I was a bad mother, that all her friends had mothers who did everything for them, that she was the only one with a lazy mother. I ended up ironing her uniform, of course, and even apologizing for daring to want to rest. That destructive pattern repeated itself for years. I would invariably give in. She would demand more. I would apologize for existing. She would make me feel like I was perpetually in the way. When she met Derek, I naively thought things would improve. I believed that by having her own family, she would need me less, pressure me less. But it was quite the opposite. Derek immediately recognized an opportunity in me. A free house, free services, readily available money whenever they required it. I vividly recalled the first time I overheard a conversation between them. It was about a year ago. I was ascending the stairs to inform them that dinner was ready when I distinctly heard voices emanating from their bedroom. I paused unintentionally, not intending to eavesdrop, but their words carried through the door with startling clarity. "When the old lady dies," Derek was saying, his voice cold and calculating, "this house will be ours. We can either sell it or rent it out. It's a prime property." "Don't talk like that," Tanisha replied, but without any real conviction in her tone. "She's my mother. She's a mother who's lived her life," Derek countered dismissively. "We're just starting. We deserve this house more than she does. We're young. We have plans. She's just taking up space. Sometimes I wish she would just leave, Tanisha admitted, and those words struck me harder than anything else. Go to a nursing home or something. But if we kick her out, people will talk. They'll say we're bad children. Then we have to make her want to leave on her own, Derek suggested with a sinister edge. Make her life utterly miserable. Little by little, she'll decide to go herself. I silently backed away from the door, careful not to make a single sound. I descended the stairs as if in a trance. I didn't announce that dinner was ready. I locked myself in my room and cried in profound silence, stifling my sobs with a pillow so they wouldn't hear me. Now, sitting alone in my kitchen at 3 a.m, I pondered why I hadn't left that very day. Why had I endured another agonizing year of humiliation after hearing that chilling exchange? Why had I continued cooking for them, cleaning for them, paying their endless bills? The answer, both simple and heartbreaking, was that I didn't believe I deserved better, because I genuinely believed that's what mothers were meant to do. Endure, sacrifice, and slowly disappear until they were nothing. But not anymore. That destructive cycle had been irrevocably broken. That morning, when the coffee burned my face and something vital inside me finally awakened, marked the end of that era. I spent the following few days meticulously reorganizing the house. I thoroughly cleaned the room Tanisha and Derek had occupied. I discovered various items they had left behind: old clothes, unimportant papers, some broken trinkets. Everything went directly into the trash. In a closet drawer, I stumbled upon a hidden envelope. I opened it. Inside were detailed photographs of my house's contents: my television, my stove, the living room furniture, even my jewelry, the few pieces I had left. Each photograph bore a handwritten note with a specific price. They were methodically appraising my belongings. A sudden chill ran down my spine. Why would they need this? Were they perhaps planning to sell my possessions? Or was it an inventory for when I was gone? I carefully kept the photographs as evidence. I wasn't entirely sure of what exactly, but I instinctively felt they might prove significant. I also found a folder of documents discreetly hidden among some old books. They were attempts by Derek to obtain loans using my address as his residence. Attempts to take out credit cards using my house as collateral. None had been approved, thankfully, because he wasn't the legitimate owner. But the mere fact that he had even attempted such actions filled me with righteous outrage. This man had been brazenly trying to leverage my property without my explicit knowledge. My home, the one I had worked 10 arduous years to acquire. My legacy, my sole security. I called Bernice and showed her the incriminating documents. "Oh, Clara, this is serious. You absolutely must report him." "I don't desire legal trouble," I stated. "I simply want them to leave me alone. But I am going to take this to a lawyer to have it formally registered, just in case they attempt anything worse." Bernice highly recommended her nephew, attorney Charles Davis. I called him, and he promptly scheduled an appointment for me that same week. Attorney Davis was a serious, composed man in his mid-40s. He listened to my entire story without a single interruption, taking occasional, meticulous notes. When I finished, he nodded slowly, thoughtfully. "Ms. Jenkins, you absolutely did the correct thing by removing them from your house. What your son-in-law attempted could certainly be considered attempted fraud. These documents you've provided are clear proof of that. I don't wish to engage in lengthy legal battles," I explained again. "I just want to safeguard myself." "I understand perfectly," he assured me. "We will implement several measures. Firstly, a new will where you clearly specify your precise wishes. Secondly, a notarized document explicitly stating that your daughter and son-in-law have absolutely no claim to your property. Thirdly, we will formally record these attempts at fraud, which could be crucial if you ever need to defend yourself in the future." "Can I leave everything to my granddaughter?" I asked tentatively. "Of course," he affirmed. "We can establish a trust where Journey receives the inheritance when she reaches 25, with a designated trustee to manage the assets until then." That's exactly what I want to do. Over the course of the next few weeks, I collaborated closely with Attorney Davis on all the necessary paperwork. I signed various documents, provided detailed declarations, and carefully organized my will. For the very first time in my entire life, I felt a profound sense of control over my own future, and over what would ultimately happen to my possessions after I was gone. I also made several other decisive choices. I visited the bank and revoked all the authorizations Tanisha previously held on my accounts. I discovered she had been systematically withdrawing money regularly, small amounts that I hadn't initially noticed, but which cumulatively amounted to several $1,000s a year. The bank executive showed me the precise transactions. Look, Ms. Jenkins, here are consistent withdrawals every week, 50, 30, 80. He did the quick math. Over the past 3 years, Tanisha had taken approximately 5,000 from my account without my explicit knowledge. I had initially authorized her access, believing it was strictly for genuine emergencies or for household purchases we shared, certainly not to systematically exploit me. I want to terminate her access immediately, I firmly told the executive. Of course, I simply require your signature here. I signed. It felt akin to severing an umbilical cord that should have been cut decades ago. I also canceled the supplementary credit card Tanisha had on my account. It was in my name, making it my ultimate responsibility, but she had used it freely, never once bothering to pay the bill. I had always paid everything, invariably accompanied by her excuses. This month is tough, or I'll pay you back next payday. 3 days after canceling everything, my phone rang. It was Tanisha. I allowed it to ring. She called again and again. On the 5th attempt, I answered. "What have you done, Mama?" she shrieked from the other end of the line. "My card doesn't work." I was utterly humiliated at the grocery store, in front of everyone. "I canceled your card. It was mine. It was in my name." "You can't do that. I have expenses. I have to buy groceries." "And I have had expenses for 42 years, I replied calmly, alone, with no assistance. "It is time you learned to live on your own resources. You're a terrible, miserable old woman." "Perhaps," I replied, my voice still steady. "But I am a miserable old woman with my money securely in my account and my peace firmly established in my house." I hung up the phone. It immediately rang again. I simply turned it off. That night, Journey unexpectedly appeared at my door. She was alone. She had run away from the apartment Derek and Tanisha had rented. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "Grandma, can I come in?" I hugged her tightly and welcomed her inside. I prepared her a soothing chamomile tea, just as I had when she was a little girl. We sat together on the living room sofa. "Mama won't stop speaking ill of you," Journey confided. "She says you've gone crazy, that you're cruel, that you abandoned us." "What do you think?" I asked her gently. Journey took a careful sip of tea before responding. "I think Mama always treated you badly, and you never said anything. I saw it, Grandma. I saw how she spoke to you, how she asked for things without saying please or thank you. How Dad looked at you as if you were invisible. It made me so angry, but I was a coward. I never said anything. I was afraid they would get mad at me, too. You're not a coward, my love. You are a child. It was never your responsibility to defend me. But I could have. I could have said something, anything. You are here now, and that means a great deal." Journey stayed the night. The following morning, before she departed, I handed her my new phone number, carefully written on a small piece of paper. "This is my private number," I told her softly. "Do not give it to your mother or father. It is exclusively for you and me. You can call me whenever you wish, at any hour." "Promise me you won't disappear?" she asked, her voice small and vulnerable. "I promise. I will always be there for you, Journey. Always. But my days of being constantly available to your mother and father are over. Do you understand?" "Yes, Grandma. I understand." I watched her leave with a heavy heart, yet knowing unequivocally that it was for the best. Journey needed to learn to navigate her own complicated family dynamics. I could be her safe refuge, but I couldn't rescue her from absolutely everything. She too had to mature, make her own crucial decisions, and ultimately discover her own inner strength. Weeks slowly turned into months. The house remained silent, but it was a silence I had gradually learned to deeply enjoy. I resumed sewing, but now it was purely for pleasure, not out of dire necessity. I crafted exquisitely embroidered tablecloths, delicate decorative pillows, and various small items that I sold at the local craft market on weekends. One afternoon, 3 months after the regrettable coffee incident, I was diligently watering the front garden when I observed Tanisha standing outside my gate. She appeared noticeably different, thinner, more weary, older than her 42 years should have shown. I did not open the gate. I remained on the other side, the garden hose still clutched firmly in my hand. "What do you require, Tanisha?" "I need to speak with you, Mama." "We are conversing now." "Inside, please." "No. Whatever you feel you need to communicate, you can say it from precisely where you are standing." She looked visibly uncomfortable. She glanced around nervously, acutely aware that some of the neighbors might be observing the interaction. "Mama, I want to apologize. What I did was inexcusable. The way I treated you was absolutely horrible. I am truly sorry." Her words sounded distinctly rehearsed, as if she had meticulously practiced them in front of a mirror countless times. "Are you truly sorry?" I inquired, my voice calm and steady. "Or are you simply sorry that you lost access to my money and my house?" "Both things," she admitted, and at least that much was honest. "I'm sorry I treated you so badly, but I also desperately need your help. Derek lost his job. We're significantly behind on the rent. We don't have enough money for food." "Right. That is your problem, Tanisha, not mine." I'm your daughter. You are my daughter, but I am a human being first and foremost, before I am your mother. And human beings deserve inherent respect, something you never once afforded me. I gave you my entire childhood. I gave you my life. You gave me nothing that I didn't first give you, multiplied by 100. I provided you with education, a secure roof over your head, nourishing food, appropriate clothing, and countless opportunities. I offered you love when you reciprocated with contempt. I extended patience when you responded with incessant complaints. I gave you money when you presented demands, and it was never, ever enough. Mama, please. No. The answer is an unequivocal no. I am not going to give you any money. I am not going to allow you to reside here again. I am not going to continue being your convenient safety net while you relentlessly use me as a punching bag. I saw tears begin to roll down her cheeks, but they failed to move me. They were the very same tears she had skillfully employed throughout her life to manipulate me. I knew them intimately. "One day you're going to need me," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "and I won't be there." "Perhaps you are correct," I replied, my voice unwavering, "but I would rather face that day alone and in peace than be constantly surrounded by people who hate me." She left without uttering another word. I watched her walk away down the street, her shoulders slumped in defeat, a picture of profound despair. And me? I felt a profound sense of peace. I walked back into my house, closed the door gently, and for the first time in months, I felt completely, utterly free. But deep down, I knew this was merely the prelude. Greater, more significant decisions awaited me, decisions that would fundamentally alter my life forever. And I was ready, absolutely ready to make them. I awoke the following morning with a clarity I hadn't experienced in decades. It was as if a thick, obscuring fog that had enveloped my mind for years had finally dissipated. I could perceive things sharply. I could think with precise lucidity. And for the first time, I could remember. I knew precisely what I needed to do. It wasn't about seeking revenge. It wasn't about inflicting suffering upon Tanisha and Derek. It was something far deeper and yet, simultaneously, much simpler. It was about reclaiming my own life. It was about painstakingly constructing something that was entirely, unequivocally mine. Something no one could ever seize. Something no one could contaminate with their contempt or their manipulative schemes. I sat at the kitchen table with a fresh notebook and a pen. I began meticulously compiling lists. Not emotional lists, but intensely practical ones. Lists of actions, lists of necessary changes, lists of concrete steps toward forging a dramatically different life. The first list was emphatically titled Legal Protection. I had already made significant progress with Attorney Davis, but I wanted to ensure there were absolutely no loose ends. I meticulously wrote down, verify the will is fully registered, confirm Journey's trust is operating correctly, review all of Derek's fraud documents are properly filed with the notary. The second list was titled Financial Independence. Here, I detailed more specific items. I needed to precisely calculate how much money I currently possessed, how much I typically spent each month, and how much income I could realistically generate from my sewing work. I needed to ascertain if I could fully support myself, completely alone, without anyone's assistance. The third list proved to be the most challenging to compose. It was titled New Life, and beneath that heading, I penned something that surprised even myself. Consider moving somewhere else. The idea had been subtly circling in my mind for weeks, but I hadn't dared to articulate it, to give it concrete form. Now, seeing it written explicitly on paper, it felt palpably real. It felt unequivocally possible. It felt like the definitive answer I had been unconsciously searching for without even realizing it. Why remain here, in this house laden with bitter, painful memories, in this neighborhood where the neighbors regarded me with either pity or morbid curiosity? In this very city where I might inadvertently encounter Tanisha or Derek on any street corner? Why not embark on a fresh start in a place where no one knew me, where no one was familiar with my past story, where I could simply exist as Clara, unburdened by the weight of my past? I spent that entire morning researching on the old computer I had purchased years ago and barely knew how to operate. I specifically searched for small towns in other states, quiet communities with temperate climates, places with tight-knit communities where life unfolded at a simpler pace. I discovered a charming town in North Carolina called Oak Ridge. According to its website, it boasted approximately 8,000 residents, was nestled amidst picturesque mountains, enjoyed pleasant weather year-round, and was renowned for its vibrant artisan community. The website featured enticing photographs of tree-lined streets, vibrantly colored houses, and serene town squares adorned with large, inviting gazebos. I gazed at those photographs for a very long time. I tried to vividly imagine myself there, leisurely strolling those peaceful streets and sitting contentedly in those squares, living a tranquil life in one of those small, inviting houses. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, the prospect of my future did not fill me with dread. Instead, it filled me with genuine hope. I dialed the number listed for town tourism. A kind, pleasant woman answered. "Good morning, Oak Ridge Tourism Office, Beatrice speaking." "Good morning, ma'am. My name is Clara, and I'm contemplating relocating to your town. I would greatly appreciate some information about what it's truly like to live there." "Oh, that's absolutely wonderful," Beatrice replied with palpable enthusiasm. "It's a very peaceful town, Ms. Jenkins. Extremely safe. The people are genuinely friendly. We possess everything you could possibly need. A health center, a bustling market, schools. And it's truly beautiful, very green and lush." We conversed for nearly half an hour. Beatrice shared insights about life in the town, about the local festivals, about how most residents knew each other well. She informed me about houses available for rent or purchase, about the prices, and about the general cost of living. "Is there work available there?" I inquired. "I am a seamstress." "Perfect! We host a vibrant crafts market every Saturday where many talented women sell their work, and there is always a pressing need for a skilled seamstress. The one we had unfortunately moved away last year to live with her daughter in the city, and everyone dearly misses her." When I finally hung up the phone, my heart was racing. It wasn't nervousness, it was an exhilarating excitement. It was the powerful sensation that a significant door had opened, and behind it, there was pure light, not oppressive darkness. But I knew I couldn't act impulsively. I needed to meticulously plan every single step with utmost care. I needed to be smart about this momentous decision. I spent the next few days in a state of quiet, intense preparation. I did not disclose my plans to anyone, not even to Bernice. Not because I distrusted her, but because I needed to maintain complete privacy until everything was fully arranged. If Tanisha were to discover my intention to leave, she might attempt to obstruct me in some way. I began systematically separating my belongings into 3 distinct categories: what I would take, what I would sell, and what I would donate. I quickly realized that after 67 years of life, I had accumulated an astonishing amount of possessions, but very little of it truly held any deep significance. The old clothes I no longer wore went into the donation pile. The large, cumbersome furniture that would be impossible to transport went on to the sale list. The excessive kitchenware, the decorations I never genuinely liked but had retained for years, the myriad things Tanisha had left behind and never bothered to collect. Everything slowly began to leave my house. What I ultimately decided to keep fit into a surprisingly small space. Enough clothes for 2 weeks, my portable sewing machine, a cherished few books, my truly important photographs, my mother's jewelry, and essential documents. Everything else was deemed disposable. I hired a man who specialized in buying used furniture. He arrived one afternoon, meticulously inspected everything I had for sale, and made several calculations in his notebook. "I can offer you $2,000 for everything, ma'am." "$2,500, I countered. $2,200, and I'll finalize the deal right now." "Fine." He handed me the cash. He returned the following day with a truck and 2 helpers. They took the entire living room set, the dining room furniture, the complete bedroom sets, everything. I was left with only my bed, a small table with 2 chairs, and essential kitchen items. The house was nearly empty, but I felt an incredible lightness, more profound than ever before. Then I contacted Attorney Davis. "Charles, I wish to rent out my house. Can you recommend a reliable realtor?" "Of course, Ms. Jenkins. My sister-in-law Shelby owns a reputable real estate company. She is very professional and highly responsible. Would you like me to arrange an appointment?" "Yes, please. And Charles, there is a special condition. The rent money must be deposited directly into Journey's trust. Not a single penny can go into my account or any account Tanisha might potentially access. Is that clearly understood? I will prepare the contract precisely in that manner." 2 days later, I met Shelby, Attorney Davis's sister-in-law. She was a direct, efficient woman in her 50s, exuding competence. She toured the house with a discerning, critical eye. "It's a good property, Ms. Jenkins. Well located, in excellent condition. I can easily rent it for $2,000 a month. The market is quite strong right now. How long will you require to find suitable to Nance? Give me 2 weeks, 3 at most, to be safe." "Perfect. Attorney Davis will provide you with the specific contract details. It needs to be very precise about where the money is to be deposited. No problem at all. I will handle everything." We signed the agreement. Shelby meticulously took photographs of the e-house, prepared an attractive advertisement, and began showing it to potential tenants. I observed everything with a surprising sense of calm detachment. It was as if I were merely observing someone else's life, not my own. Meanwhile, I continued my research on Oak Ridge. I found various rental listings. One particular house caught my immediate eye. It was small, featuring 2 cozy bedrooms, a charming front yard, and a picturesque view of the mountains. It cost $875 a month. I called the number provided in the advertisement. "Good afternoon. I'm interested in the house you have for rent." "Oh, yes, of course," replied an older woman's voice. "I'm Beatrice, the owner. The house is available. Would you like to come and view it?" "I reside in a different city," I explained. "Would it be possible to conduct a video call to see the property?" "Oh, I'm not familiar with using those computer devices," Beatrice admitted with a slight laugh. "But my granddaughter can certainly assist me. Leave me your number and she'll call you back." Half an hour later, a young girl, Beatrice's granddaughter, video called me from her cell phone. She meticulously showed me the entire house as she walked through it. It was simple, yet incredibly cozy and inviting. White walls, pristine tile floors, a basic but highly functional kitchen, a clean, well-maintained bathroom, and 2 small but perfectly sufficient bedrooms. The yard boasted vibrant rose bushes and a thriving lemon tree. "It's absolutely perfect," I told the girl, my voice filled with genuine delight. Can I rent it without seeing it in person? My grandma says yes, she replied. If you deposit the first month's rent and 1 month's security deposit in advance. Can I deposit it tomorrow? Certainly. I'll send you my grandma's account details right away. That night, lying in my bed in the nearly empty house, I felt an emotion I hadn't experienced in years. I felt an overwhelming excitement for the future. I felt a keen curiosity about what awaited me. I felt that my life hadn't concluded at 67, it was just truly beginning. The next day, I went to the bank and executed the transfer to Beatrice, $750 in total, encompassing the first month's rent plus the deposit. It was a substantial amount of money, but I possessed it. I had meticulously saved it for years, and now I was finally going to utilize it for myself. Exclusively for me. While completing the transaction at the bank, I undertook a few other crucial tasks. I opened a brand new bank account that only I would have knowledge of. I transferred the majority of my funds into it, leaving only the bare minimum in the old account. I changed all my passwords. I meticulously ensured that no one but me had access to anything. I also visited the phone company and purchased a new cell phone with a completely new number. Only 3 individuals would possess that number: Journey, Bernice, and Attorney Davis. No one else. Every action I took instilled within me a deeper sense of strength, of control, of being the sole architect of my own destiny. It was as if I were painstakingly constructing a fortress around my new life, brick by carefully placed brick. Bernice came to visit one afternoon and was visibly shocked to see the almost empty house. Clara, what in the world have you done? Did you sell absolutely everything? Yes, I replied simply. Why? I looked her directly in the eyes. She was my only true friend. She deserved to know the unvarnished truth. I'm moving, Bernice. To a town far away from here, to start completely anew. I saw tears well up in her eyes. When? In about 2 weeks, as soon as the realtor successfully finds tenants for the house. And Tanisha? Does she know about this? No, and I expressly do not want her to know until I am safely gone. That is why I am earnestly asking you not to tell anyone. Please. Bernice hugged me tightly. I won't utter a single word, but I am going to miss you terribly, my dear friend. And I will miss you too, but I absolutely need to do this. I need to distance myself from everything that has caused me so much pain. I need to discover who I truly am when I am not being Tanisha's mother or Derek's victim. I just want to be Clara. I understand perfectly, Bernice said, wiping away her tears. And I truly believe you are incredibly brave. The following week, Shelby called me. Miss Jenkins, I have found excellent tenants. It's a young couple with a baby, very responsible, possessing a good income and impeccable references. They are eager to sign the lease this week and wish to move in next Monday. Does that arrangement work for you? That sounds absolutely perfect. Everything was seamlessly falling into place, as if the universe were finally conspiring in my favor, instead of perpetually against me. I began to pack the few items I would take, 2 large suitcases and 1 small box of fragile belongings. That was all. 67 years of life, condensed into 2 suitcases and a single box. 3 days before my departure, Journey called me on my old cell phone. Grandma? She answered, her voice filled with excitement. Hello, my love. How are you? Oh, Grandma, I've missed you so much. Where are you? Are you all right? I'm doing wonderfully, Journey. Better than ever. I'm in a beautiful, tranquil town. I have a charming little house with a garden. I'm sewing again. I am truly at peace. I'm so incredibly happy to hear that, Grandma. You sound different. You sound genuinely happy. I am, my love. For the first time in a very long time, I truly am. Your mother is frantic, Journey confided, lowering her voice. She doesn't know where you are. She went to your house and discovered other people living there. She was absolutely furious. She screamed that you had no right to rent the house without informing her. That house was always exclusively mine, Journey. Always. I decided what to do with it. I know, Grandma, but Mama simply won't accept it. She claims you'll return, that this is merely a tantrum. It's not a tantrum, it's a definitive decision, and I am not coming back. We conversed for a while longer. I told her about the general town without divulging specific location details. She recounted her school experiences and how Tanisha and Derek were now experiencing significant financial difficulties. Without my support, Mama had to get a job as a cashier at a supermarket, Journey explained. She told me she comes home exhausted every day and just complains constantly. She says you forced her to do this. I didn't feel any satisfaction hearing that. But I didn't feel guilt either. Tanisha was experiencing, for the very first time in her life, what it truly meant to earn a living through honest, hard work. What I had done for 42 years. Journey, your mother will be fine. She's young. She's capable. She simply needs to learn what I never managed to teach her, that no one owes you anything in life. Months passed gracefully. Autumn gradually gave way to winter, though winter in Oak Ridge was mild, only a little cooler than usual. I cultivated a peaceful routine. I woke with the rising sun, prepared coffee, and enjoyed my breakfast slowly in my garden. Then I dedicated myself to my workshop, sewing, embroidering, and creating. In the afternoons, I would stroll through the town, greeting neighbors and acquiring what I needed at the local market. I spent my evenings reading or simply sitting in my living room, reveling in the quietude. I made new friends, other women of my age or older. Elaine, who crafted beautiful ceramics, Margaret, who intricately wove scarves, Ruth, who painted serene landscapes. Denise joined our group when she moved to town the previous year. We gathered on Thursday afternoons for coffee and engaging conversation. We shared stories, laughter, and comfortable silences. None of them knew my complete life story. To them, I was simply Clara, the seamstress who had arrived from the city seeking peace. And that was perfectly sufficient. 1 year passed, then 2. Journey called me diligently every week. She spoke about her life, about how she had begun college, studying education. She had secured a scholarship and was working part-time at a daycare center. She was diligently building her own life, entirely independent of her parents' turmoil. Grandma, when I turn 18, I desperately want to visit you. It's almost a year away. When you turn 18, I will gladly give you my address, and you will be welcome anytime you wish to come. And Mama, aren't you going to speak with her again? I honestly don't know, Journey. Maybe someday. But not now. Not yet. One beautiful spring day, 2.5 years after my arrival in Oak Ridge, I was at the market, selling my meticulously crafted products, when I witnessed a scene that profoundly affected me. A young woman in her 30s was vehemently arguing with an older woman, who appeared to be her mother. The young woman spoke with cruel, contemptuous words, while the older woman merely bowed her head in resignation. "You're utterly useless," the young woman shouted. "You don't do anything correctly. I'm sick of you." I saw myself reflected in that older woman. I saw Tanisha in that young woman, and something profound stirred within me. I waited for the young woman to leave. Then I approached the older woman, who was discreetly wiping away her tears. "Are you all right, ma'am?" She looked at me in surprise. Yes. It's just my daughter. She's stressed." "Stress does not justify disrespect," I said softly, my voice firm yet gentle. "No one has the right to treat you that way, not even your own daughter. But I don't do things the way she wants. You do them the way you can, and that is perfectly enough. Ma'am, listen to me very closely. You do not have to endure bad treatment simply because you are a mother. True love does not abuse. True love does not humiliate. You deserve respect. You deserve dignity." I saw her eyes fill with tears once more, but these were different. No one has ever told me that before. Well, I am telling you now, and I sincerely hope you remember it. I don't know if my words offered her any solace, but I felt a compelling need to utter them. For her, for the Clara of 3 years ago. For all the women who mistakenly believe they must endure everything in silence. That night, sitting on my porch, gazing up at the countless stars, I thought about Tanisha. I wondered how she was, if she had changed, if she had learned any valuable lessons, if she ever thought of me with anything other than bitter resentment. And then I realized something fundamentally important. It no longer truly mattered. It no longer mattered whether Tanisha ultimately changed or not. It no longer mattered if she missed me or despised me. It no longer mattered if she ever fully comprehended the profound harm she had inflicted upon me, because my peace no longer depended on her actions or feelings. My happiness was no longer inextricably tied to her approval or her love. I had meticulously built a life that was mine, completely, utterly mine, and no one could ever wrest it away from me. I had achieved something far more valuable than mere revenge or external recognition. I had gained my freedom. I had reclaimed my dignity. I had found my profound peace. And that was more than I ever thought I would possess. The life I had painstakingly constructed in Oak Ridge wasn't glamorous. It wasn't flawlessly perfect. But it was authentic. It was honest. It was mine. And for the very first time in 69 years of life, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 5 years have now passed since that pivotal morning of the hot coffee in my face. 5 years since I made the life-altering decision that forever transformed my existence. Today, I woke up, as always, to the cheerful symphony of birds singing outside my window, specifically from the lemon tree. The gentle morning sun streams softly through my bedroom window. Cinnamon, the beautiful orange cat I adopted 3 years ago, is curled up contentedly at my feet, purring with that rhythmic sound that invariably brings me immense peace. I rise from bed without rushing. There is simply no reason to hurry anymore. No one is impatiently waiting for me to prepare coffee or breakfast. No harsh voices are yelling that I do everything wrong. There is only the gentle, profound silence of my house, that exquisite silence I have learned to cherish deeply. I put on my favorite robe, the lovely blue floral one I purchased at the market, and walk barefoot to the kitchen. I make my coffee slowly, deliberately, savoring every single step of the process. The rich aroma fills me with a deep sense of satisfaction. I carry my mug to the porch and settle into the comfortable wooden rocker that Beatrice so thoughtfully gave me when I turned 70. The mountains appear breathtakingly beautiful this morning. A slight, ethereal mist gently covers them, resembling a delicate, shimmering veil. I drink my coffee, gazing out at them, not contemplating anything in particular, simply existing fully in this precious moment that is completely mine. My life here is simple, uncomplicated, and precisely because of that, it is perfect. In the mornings, I work diligently in my workshop. My sewing machine hums a contented tune as I create exquisite tablecloths, embroidered napkins, and decorative pillows. My hands are not as agile or quick as they once were, but they are still eminently capable. Every stitch is a profound meditation. Every finished piece is a small, satisfying victory. On Thursdays, I meet with my cherished friends, Elaine, Margaret, Ruth, and Denise. We drink coffee, indulge in delicious danishes, and converse about everything and nothing. We laugh heartily, sometimes we shed a few tears, and we invariably listen intently to each other. None of them inquire about my past. Some instinctively sense that there are difficult, untold stories behind my arrival in Oak Ridge, but they respectfully honor my silence, and I, in turn, respect theirs. We have all arrived here carrying something heavy. We have all found a sanctuary here to gently let it go. Journey visited me just last month. She came for a week during her college break. She is now 20 years old, in her 3rd year of studying education. She has blossomed into a beautiful, strong, independent young woman. We walked through the town together. I proudly showed her all my favorite spots: the charming bakery where I buy my treats, the scenic overlook where one can view all the majestic mountains, the small shop where I purchase my fabrics. "Grandma, you are so incredibly different from how you used to be," she remarked one afternoon while we were sipping hot chocolate in the town square. "Different how?" I asked, intrigued. "Lighter, more peaceful. It's like you glow from within. Before, you always appeared so tired and sad, as if you were shouldering the weight of the entire world. That's exactly how I felt, I admitted. But I left that world behind, Journey, and with it, all that crushing burden. She confided that Tanisha is still working at the supermarket, that Derek finally left for good, having found another woman and started a new family. She told me that Tanisha lives alone in a small apartment and occasionally inquires about me. What does she ask? Where is she? How is she? Is she ever coming back? Is she ever going to forgive me? I forgave her a long time ago, Journey. But forgiving doesn't necessitate returning. It signifies letting go. It means ceasing to carry the pain someone else inflicted upon me. She has changed, Grandma, truly. The suffering has rendered her more humble, more acutely aware. I'm genuinely happy to hear that, sincerely happy. But her transformation is for her own benefit, not for mine. I've already meticulously built my own life, a life I deeply enjoy, a life that affords me profound peace. Journey understood. She always understands. That is precisely why I love her so dearly. Last night, after diligently watering my rose bushes, I sat on the porch to watch the sunset. The sky was painted in vibrant hues of orange and soft pink. The crickets were commencing their nightly concert. Cinnamon was nestled comfortably in my lap, purring contentedly, and I reflected upon the entirety of my journey. I thought about the Clara of 5 years ago, that woman who perpetually shrank herself so as not to bother anyone, that woman who constantly apologized for simply existing, that woman who mistakenly believed her worth was solely defined by how much she could give, how much she could sacrifice, how much she could endure. And I looked at the Clara of now, this 72-year-old woman who lives alone and yet does not feel lonely, this woman who works for pure pleasure, not out of obligation, this woman who possesses genuine friends, not merely individuals who exploit her. This woman who awakens every single day without fear, without anxiety, without that persistent knot in her stomach. The profound change was not easy. There were countless nights filled with tears. There were moments fraught with doubt. There were days when I questioned whether I had truly done the right thing by leaving, by letting go of everything, by severing that deeply entrenched tie that bound me to Tanisha. But every time those doubts surfaced, I only needed to vividly recall that morning. The coffee burning my face, the words like sharp knives, the searing contempt in my own daughter's eyes. And then I remembered that I was not merely running away. I was actively choosing myself. I was unequivocally saving myself. I was granting myself the invaluable opportunity to truly live before it was irrevocably too late. Not all stories are destined to have perfect, fairy tale endings where everyone reconciles and lives happily ever after. Sometimes, the happy ending is simply discovering your own profound peace. It is learning that it is perfectly acceptable to establish firm boundaries and understanding that self-love is not selfishness, but a vital necessity. Tanisha may indeed be a better person now. I sincerely hope she is. But that newly transformed person does not require me to validate her change, and I, in turn, do not require her to validate my crucial decision. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is allowing each other the freedom to move on. Today, as I painstakingly record these reflections in my journal, I realize something utterly fundamental. I do not regret a single day, not a single moment of this new life. This small house, this tranquil town, this simple life are more than I ever dreamed of possessing. Not because they are inherently extraordinary, but because they are genuinely, entirely mine. No one here dictates how I should live. No one criticizes me for simply existing. No one expects me to sacrifice myself until I disappear. I am simply Clara, a woman who sews, who waters her beloved plants, who drinks coffee serenely on her porch, who engages in pleasant chats with her friends, who adores her granddaughter, and who lives in profound peace. And that is more than enough. It is everything I ever truly needed. Life has taught me that it is never too late to begin anew. That dignity is absolutely priceless, that peace is non-negotiable, and that true love does not inflict pain. and it taught me something even more crucially important, that I deserve to be happy. Not for what I accomplish for others, but simply for the inherent fact of my existence. To all the women reading this who are enduring what I once endured, I declare, you too deserve peace. You too deserve respect. You too deserve a life where you do not have to diminish yourself so as not to bother anyone. It is never too late to choose yourself. It is never too late to declare, enough. It is never too late to embark on a fresh start. The sun is setting majestically behind the mountains. Cinnamon yawns widely and stretches luxuriously on my lap. A simple but utterly delicious dinner, which I prepared calmly and mindfully, awaits me inside. Tomorrow will unfold as another peaceful day in Oak Ridge, North Carolina. Another day of this precious life I meticulously built for myself. Another day of profound peace. And I ask for nothing more. Did you connect with this narrative? From what corner of the world are you tuning in? Join the conversation in the comments section below. If this story resonated with you, consider showing your support by sending a super thanks, which helps me continue bringing more powerful stories like this one. Your thoughtful encouragement means the world. I truly look forward to reading your reflections on the tale. On your screen, you'll find 2 additional life stories that I wholeheartedly recommend. There's a wealth of other content awaiting discovery on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll meet you in the next life story with warmth and appreciation.